Okay, so today I'm going to be making an AN braided hose to replace this guy here on the Camaro. Why? Because it unfortunately sprung a little bit of a leak. So rather than trying to fix it and screw around with it, I figured I would just build another cable and it would give me an opportunity to make a new video. So this is what we're going to do. Here we go. All right, so I got the couplings here. I got the cable, the hose, the braided hose. It's already marked off. I already marked it off. It's a 9-inch long hose that I measured, and don't forget you have to count the part of the hose that's inside the coupling up until the little rest that it has in it. So it was 9 inches long. This is partly to mark where I'm going to cut. I'm going to cut in the middle of this, but it's electrical tape wound a little bit tight, about 4 turns. The reason for that is when you cut it, you could, if you don't have something holding the braid down, your braid will start to fray and it'll just get to be a mess. So it's wise to tape up where you're going to cut and just cut in the middle, and that's what we're going to do. One of the questions that comes up is, can you reuse the couplings? And yes, you can. I've done it many times. In fact, here's some used couplings now. I could have taken the couplings off, and I will take the couplings off that braided hose that's in the car now, but I'll probably toss the one that was leaking. It doesn't make much sense to keep it just in case. So, because it was probably leaking from this area here, and that's kind of irreparable. So that one will get tossed. But yes, you can use the couplings if you have clean thread and there's nothing wrong with them. Just make sure the thread is clean. Okay, so let's get to cutting, and I'll show you how I do that. Okay, stay tuned. Okay, so this is what I use to cut braided cable. The important part of cutting this cable is to make sure that it's perfectly sliced flat. So, not at an angle or anything like that. Some people use hacksaws. Some people use a grinder with the cutting wheel on it. Some people actually have a large braided hose cutter. It's kind of like a bolt cutter. So this is how I do it. Many ways to do it. You can YouTube that. But I've always found the way that this is clean. And also, I'm using a cutoff blade, but if you use a very thin steel blade, there's going to be less rubber residue, because there will be rubber residue left over, and then you need to clean that out, especially on a fuel hose. So I use compressed air, and I flush it with water as well to clean out the hose of any debris. You don't want debris getting in your fuel line and going to your injectors. That's going to be bad news. Okay, so let me go ahead and cut this, and then I'll show you how I put the AN fittings on. All right, here we go. Okay, slow and easy. Okay, that's the way that goes. I'll finish that up real quick here, but slow and easy. These chop saws, it's a 6-inch little drill master chop saw you can pick up at Harbor Freight for relatively cheap. It's useful for so many things, and I'm not trying to sell you on buying Harbor Freight crap or anything like that, but in this case, it's a good price for something that you'll probably use infrequently, but it comes in really handy. So, anyways, that's my little. I'm not I'm not giving any kind of promotional fees for this. I'm just letting you know that it's a decent tool. All right. So now that I got that cut, let's go ahead and put the AN fittings on. Okay, before I put the AN fittings on, I just wanted to show you how much of a mess a cutting blade. Now, a thin steel blade won't make this big of a mess. It will still leave some rubber residue that you need to clean off, but just wanted to give you an idea of what you'd be dealing with using a cutoff blade. Okay, so make sure that your hose is clean. Put air pressure through it, clean it, and like I said, I also flush water through it. So, all right, stay tuned. Okay, so we want to take this electrical tape off. That's first step. Okay, and you want to kind of push the braid inward a little bit because you're going to have to get it inside this guy here. Okay. And that's why you want a clean cut from the saw, because if you get a clean cut from the saw, you're not going to have a lot of braid material sticking out all over the place. And wear gloves. You can use a screwdriver to kind of push some of the braid into the coupling. That helps sometimes too. In fact, I think I'm going to do that. There you go. Okay. Now, I'm going to twist this guy in. The key is to get the braid inside the coupling and not have any fraying sticking out. Okay. All right. Okay. So, there we go. So, now you basically just have to keep pushing this guy in until, I don't know if the camera can pick it up. The hose isn't there quite yet, but you want to get it until, you want to keep pushing until it reaches that lip. Okay? So, and we're just about there. Okay, so that's why you wanted this cut perfectly horizontally on the hose, because you see it's going to drop down to just above that that thread, and it's flat. So you want the cut to be as straight as possible, so the hose is as flat as possible. Okay, so that's good. So that's there. Okay, the other side is going to be the same, but I'll do one side here, and then I'll just do the other side off camera. So once we have that done, I'm going to mark this off right here with some tape, and this will tell me if this if the hose is getting slid out of its coupling here. So, because you don't want the hose to come out of its coupling. Okay. Okay, so that'll give me an idea. All right, so the next part is getting the coupling on here. All right, so we can start it by hand, but it's going to be really, really hard as soon as it gets to the thread part. So we have a vise set up where I'm going to put this in the vise and then start using the AN wrench to tighten it up. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, so there's electrical tape behind the coupling to make sure that I'm pushing this hose in and it doesn't get pulled out. So that, and it's black. So if I see any shininess coming out of here, I know this is not going well. I'm going to have to keep pushing this hose in. So that's number one. You want to make sure that the hose is always being pushed in, and that this coupling here isn't pushing it out as you're screwing it in. So the other thing that I do is I'm going to put some lubricant on the coupling here, this WD-40. And before I do that, I'm going to heat this up. It'll soften the hose inside, and it'll make it easier for me to thread the coupling on. So let's do that. Add a little spray here. Get this thing on. I'm pushing the hose from the other side, just so you know what's going on here. And I'm taking my time with it, making sure that the hose stays in place. I like to tighten it enough to where there's just a little small tiny gap, not much, maybe less than a millimeter. And I want the flatness of the top to line up with the flatness. Okay, that was rude. The gimbal battery gave out. So anyways, so as I was saying, I like to tighten this enough. I leave a little teeny tiny gap, but I also want the both couplings to be perfectly in unison, both perfectly flat. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just going to give it like 1 or 2 more turns here and make sure they're both even with each other. And then let's see what we got. Okay. I think that's good. All right. So let's see what we have here. Okay. So you can see the tape here. Just a little tiny push out, but not much. Very acceptable. You can see the flatness between the two couplings, the male and the female here. So it's unified. It's in unison. That's just me being anal. But so notice that there's a little marring from the AN wrench. Some folks, I don't really care because it's going in the Camaro. That's all, you know, all the rest of the couplings are already marred up. But some folks put plumber's tape around it, and I don't know if that really helps a heck of a lot or not. But I mean, by plumber's tape, I mean this stuff here to protect the finish. If I was doing a show truck or a show car, I definitely would be protecting this a little bit more. I don't know if I'd be using this exact wrench, but anyways. All right, so now let's do the other side. I won't bore you with it. It's the same thing, except we're going to be doing, well, that's a used one. Not that it matters, but we're going to do a 90 degree to that. Same thing. Okay. Well, the camera can see that, but goes all the way to the lip. So let's get some tape here. The flats here. Okay. All right. So there we go. Done. So what we're going to do now, we can take this tape off. We don't need that anymore. So theoretically, you can call this done at this point. Okay, that's going to replace the one in the Camaro. But I go a little step further with it. So one, I'm going to flush it. But the other is, I have this little kit where you basically pop this in one end. Okay, it's a cap. And then tighten that down. And then on the other end, I have a valve stem. So this goes into here. And between the cap and this being tightened up, I put about 60 psi through this and make sure that there's no leaks. So that way I don't have to put it on the car and find it leaks. I can find out before it's on the car. So that's what I'm going to do next, and then we'll get ready to put it on the car, and that will be that. But I hope you got something out of at least how to put AN fittings together. You can see how relatively easy it was. Again, I might use some methods that others might think weird, like the heat gun. But, you know, I tried it without the heat gun, and yeah, I don't know how well the heat gun works, but it's just a comfort thing for me. I think it helps just a little bit. But the main thing is make sure you put some kind of lubricant. That's important. That's going to help you a lot. This hose gets really tight with that fitting coming through it. So, all right. So, like I always say, enjoy life. You only live once. And there you have it. Peace out. Okay, for those of you that like to stick around longer, here's your real ending. So, we got the new braided hose fuel line in, and you can see here I've got pressure going into it from the fuel pump and no leaks. So, and then when I tighten these AN fittings down, I usually hand tighten. I think the AN8 takes about 33 pounds torque. I hand tighten and then go about a quarter of a turn of even that. And if it leaks, then I just tighten it a little bit more, but as you can see, there's no leaking. So, all right, thanks for sticking around to the end. Y'all have a good one. Enjoy life.